What's happening, guys? Welcome into another boxing breakdown and prediction show for this weekend's huge rematch between Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez and El Gallo Juan Francisco Estrada in a massive unification clash up at super flyweight. So let's get into it. These two fought back in 2012, albeit two divisions lower, in what was an absolute barn burner of a fight. The Chocolatito eventually won narrowly on points, but a lot has changed since that first fight over 8 years ago. Well, Estrada's went on an absolute monster run, unifying a flyweight and then moving up to win titles at Superfly as well. Roman Gonzalez seemed to really struggle when he approached Superfly, having a really tough war with Carlos Cuadras before losing back-to-back fights against Thai Wrecking Machine Sorongvasai. And it kind of seemed Gonzalez had reached his limit at that weight. You know, many people assumed after those losses the Chocolatito was unfortunately washed up and that the weight was simply too big for him. So we're seeing that perception, somewhat reflected in the betting line here. Juan Francisco Estrada comes into this one as the minus 165 favourite, with Chocolatito coming back as a plus 135 underdog. Now, I made a video with Gianni over at WagerTalk last year, right before the Chocolatito Calify fight, in which I said I thought Roman Gonzalez was anything but washed up. The undefeated Yafai was the favourite heading into that fight, but Chocolatito seemed to turn back the clock on the younger British fighter. When he put on an absolute masterclass in that fight, punished Jaffe with heavy shots to the head and body, before eventually closing the show in the ninth. But he certainly won't have it as easy this Saturday night. Estrada is a top quality operator. He employs range effectively. He can rip off some quick, crisp combinations to the head and body, with arguably his money punch being that terrific left hook that he employs downstairs. And the Mexican fighter is no doubt settled into super flyweight a lot better than Chocolatito, as we mentioned. But despite his technical brilliance and the phenomenal run he's been on of late, there's definitely some chinks in his armour that Chocolatito can exploit here. Estrada is generally a slow starter in fights. He likes to use counter-punching, lateral movement from the outside in his opponents, as he did to great effect in that Sorongvasai rematch. But against Carlos Cuadras in his last fight, Cuadras followed him right back into the pocket and put it on him hard in the third. Put him down with a solid left hook. And that's going to be the danger here for Estrada, as he won't be able to fight off the back foot effectively against a guy like Chocolatito, because, just like in their first fight against Cuadras, he'll be followed into that area and punished accordingly, as Chocolatito does his best work walking forward. Where Estrada did find success in that first fight, however, was in adapting to that more front foot heavy approach. He was ripping off some terrific left hooks to the body against Cuadras, which obviously paid huge dividends near the end, managing to stop Cuadras late in that one. And against Chocolatito in that first fight as well, he did his best work backing Chocolatito up late on, where the Nicaraguan fighter simply isn't as effective. But that'll be easier said than done in this one. And Gonzalez doesn't nearly get enough credit for his level of defense as he should. Well, it's not pretty, it is effective. And his tendency to catch shots on both his forearm and shoulders allows him to roll into those dangerous areas, throwing back his own combinations. This is an incredibly close fight to call, as both men have a legitimate shot to win this one. And stylistically, we know we're going to be in for another absolute classic here. But I got to go with my man Chocolatito. While it's going to be an incredibly close fight, I think Chocolatito's methodical front foot heavy style can create huge problems for Estrada in this one, just as did in the first fight. And if he can time that right hand over the top as Estrada circles away, I think Estrada slowed down a little bit. A knockdown or two wouldn't surprise me in this one either. Not a 5% play by any means, because it is such a tough fight, but I'll take a shot with the underdog here on Saturday night, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, to repeat his victory once again, and cash the big plus 135 ticket. That'll wrap things up for this edition of the Boxing Prediction Show. As always, leave us your thoughts. And you can catch me over on Twitter at the SportsWolf83 and at my handicapper page, Kevin Dolan, over at WagerTalk. We'll be back next week with a breakdown of Virgil Ortiz's fight against Mighty Mo Hooker over on DAZN. So stay tuned for that. As always, until then, thanks for listening. Good luck on all your bets.